I just bought this racing seat, and today I'm going to assemble it. I've never assembled one of these before, so you're going to learn along with me. So, if you're new to the channel, my name is Sean, and we're going to get to assembling this thing one step at a time, and I'm going to show you in detail how to do that, and hopefully be as entertaining as possible doing so. Now here's what we're working with. We've got the box that contains the seat and all the mounts for the controller, the pedals, and the shifter. This is the Logitech G920 and the shifter that goes along with that. I got all three of them. The pedals and the steering wheel are bundled together, while the shifter is a separate device, but I did purchase them bundled together as one price. I'm not sure if that's just the vendor doing that or not, but those were about 250 bucks. This is also around 250, 280 everywhere at the moment. So collectively, you're going to be in the neighborhood of 500 bucks or a little bit over to have this more realistic driving setup. So this is kind of the budget with the better controller, but the more budget side, budget-minded seating and positioning, all that stuff. And we're going to see how good this actually is. And when all this is done, I'll use it for a little while, and then I'll also do a follow-up review video on how I like it. So first things first, we're going to unbox this. And we've got our back cushion on top. This is blue. It is also offered in red and gray, but this is the one that I went with. So this is probably going to be towards the end. From what I understand, the instructions on these things are terrible, which is why I decided to make this video. So we're going to set that off to the side. We do have our instructions right here. And the front's pretty general. It looks like all of the tools that are needed are supplied. It is just a hex wrench, well, two different hex wrenches. It comes with all the bolts, washers, and hand screws. So this doesn't look as bad as it probably could. We'll see once we get into it and see how this goes. But it doesn't look incredibly awful. This is the version 4.0 as it denoted on the box, so maybe they have improved over the years, I'm not sure. We've got loose screws, some plastic. These are going to be for the side of the seat, I believe. We have another box of hardware. Okay, so this is going to be brackets. We've got another large bracket. Two more mounts. The seat bottom. This I'm not sure if it broke off or where it came from. We might find what the deal with that is. We've got another box of hardware. We're gonna get this big one out of the way. We've got a small one, that stuff out of the way. The packaging is beat up pretty well. It is not what I would consider top-notch packaging. We've got a seat rail, it looks like. Another seat rail. This is an adjustable seat, and they are labeled left and right. And we've got boxes in boxes. And this is going to be, I believe, the pedal mount. It is adjustable. Here's what that guy is. So these other two boxes are probably going to be our nuts and bolts. More brackets. This one must be our nuts and bolts. Okay. And there we go. We now have all of the brackets that we need, and I'm going to take a moment to lay these out and get a better idea of what we're working with. We are just getting started, and I'm just now finding out why these directions are so bad. First part in the instructions, it says to find the rails, which we have our right and our left, and they're labeled left and right. And that's wonderful. It says to find the right. Got it. It says to bolt it to the bottom of the seat, observing which side is the front, which this is the front up here. The problem is, it doesn't tell you which bolts to use. There are 3 different bags of bolts. The wrenches are in one of them that has a lot of the washers and some of the bolts. There are 3 different bolt sizes. There's M8s, M6, but there are different lengths on those. And it mentions spacers, it says they may be installed already. Well, you made them and you wrote the manual, so are they or aren't they? I think that's something you should know. What I can tell you is this bag, as I figured out, is the right one because it has the spacers in it. So we've got our bolts, we've got our spacers, we've got our right rail, and that's going to go, you guessed it, on the right. This is our seat adjustment, so that will go towards the front. So we've got to put our spacer in here because, as you can tell, it won't go. So we've got spacers and bolts, and this is their supplied wrench. Now the hole for these is a little hard to find in the fabric, but you can't get it in there. And you will have to adjust this to get to the other bolt hole. Now, if you've got one of these started, you are going to have to put it a bulk of the way in because this rail has to slide so you can get to the other bolt. There we go. And you don't want to go all the way tight with it just yet, so you can still maneuver as you get this other one in. There's no torque spec listed on these, so you may go with the German method of Guten tight. Alright, so the front is good there. Slide it up. Now that one's tight, and we're going to do the same thing with the other side. Now something to know here, that these tracks are greased, so you don't want to get your hands in there unless you want to have to clean up your hands or possibly not get it anywhere on the seat. I also feel like these probably should have a washer on it, but it didn't mention anything about a washer. So we'll just kind of deal with that and hope for the best. So on to the next part. Next up, we've got these stabilizer bars, and there are two of these, and there's a hole that goes through it on one end, and we want to make sure that these are going up and down like so, because we'll be attaching things to here. So there are two of these. They go across right here and right here. And we are going to use M8 bolts, and we have washers on them these times. Okay, now I've got both of the stabilizer bars in place, and we can move on to the next step. We've got one other bar, and this is not labeled, you just kind of have to figure out exactly what it is. But there is a threaded spot here, a threaded spot here, and then a welded on bolt here. And this spot is what's going to go at the front of the seat at the bottom. The next piece is this one right here. There's a threaded spot on the bottom, threaded spot up here, and a welded on nut up here. And this is a spot that's going to go at the front, and how you place that is going to be critical. So the bolts will actually go in through here, which would be the top. We're going to set this on here and make sure this end goes to the front. Remember, this is the front of the seat. Here is the spot where the M6 bolts go. There are only two of these, and they'll go through the hole here, and just find the thread. The first one may be a little bit difficult. They do not go in very far at all, but once you have the first one in, the second one should go in much easier. You also may have to twist if you don't have this exactly flat, as it appears I don't. But I know it's nice and tight, so we're gonna twist it just a little bit. Okay, now with this together, you can put your thing down, flip it, reverse it, and ignore all of the dust from my floor. And here we have the base of it. Now here's a part of the video where you realize you should have watched it first in its entirety instead of doing it in real time. Go grab a 13mm socket, a 17mm socket, and a Phillips head screwdriver. I'll wait. Okay, so we're going to completely ignore the directions entirely, as slightly confusing as they are. One, because they say to use an adjustable wrench on these bolts, which is both awkward and just fidgety. It's weird. So just use a ratchet and socket instead. It'll be much better. So we have to take bolts out. There are these bolts that are pre-installed right here. And you may be able to get these loose by hand after you get them started. And on the other side is a 17mm, which you won't be able to see on video here, but there is one bolt in the side of the seat cushion right up top here, and that is our 17mm that we're also taking out. Now with both of these out, we can set it in place. And if you start with this guy over here, that might be a little easier, might be a little harder. Don't know, never done this. So we've got this kind kind of lined up, and I'm just going to get this a little bit hand tight to kind of get it in position. And then these two bolts we're going to put back in, which again do not have washers on them. Wouldn't hurt my feelings if they did. Once you get these started by hand, you can get them tight with a socket. Something to note on this bolt is there is a flat ridge right here, and that ridge is going to sit inside this larger hole. So when you tighten it down, make sure that ridge actually fits in there, and you may have to fight with it a little bit, as I'm having to. But once it goes all the way in, you're in good shape. So we've got the bottom assembled, the back tied to the bottom, and we can now adjust this as needed and install the hardware that goes on the side. And that's where these plastic pieces and these screws come in. Now onto the cosmetic pieces, and this is where it gets interesting. We've got this piece that goes right here. Now behind this handle is where it screws in. It goes through right there, goes in right there. We're gonna have to fold this forward so this handle will actually be up so we can get that in. On the back side, there's a little ridge. That's gotta go behind this spring right here. So that's gonna be step one, and we're gonna have to change it up just a little bit from the directions because we have a problem. There's supposed to be something here with a screw in it for this piece. This piece will go right here. I'm going to end up sliding this in after the fact and having to drill a hole, probably putting a wood screw in this way through this hole. You see there's that spot right there to go through it. There's supposed to be something here. They even show it in the manual as a screw that you have to deal with there, and it's not present. So we're going to have to modify that a little bit to get this panel on there. But we'll start with this one. Now you're going to have to kind of fool with it and bend it a little bit to get it past the handle, past the spring, just like so. We're going to cram this forward, and now we can put the screw in right there. On this side, the bolt actually has a thread in it, so we're going to take this piece, put it in here like so, make sure we got it lined up, and this one is a little bit different screw. There's only one screw like that in the entire kit, so you'll definitely have the right one. So we've got this in place, and we can come back to this guy a little bit later. I'm just going to take a wood screw, have this in place, put a wood screw in it, and that's what I'm going to do, but I'll do that off camera. So now I can move on to where the pedals attach, and that will attach to the rest of the base, and we have to assemble that. So this is the plate where the pedals actually attach. This is the very bottom piece that would be the most forward. Here is going to be our pivot point, so that's going to match up right here. This will go on the outside of this on each side. Then this bolt that goes through here will be our adjustment, and that will be for changing the angle on that as you should so desire. Now I would leave all of these hand tight until you get everything together and find the actual position you want, then you can tighten them all the way. So we've got this panel that goes into this piece, which has already got threads in it. So we're going to use M8 bolts with washers. You notice we didn't use washers up here. The directions do not say to use them there, but it does say to use them here as well as being pictured. And these we're also going to want to tighten down all the way, because these are not going anywhere. We'll slide right in here, and that's where these come in handy. Is this is an adjustable piece, so there's going to be hand tight adjustments. You snug that up in whatever position you want. It won't move, and you can easily slide it in and out, which is the idea behind that. So now we've got this section together. We can move on to the next piece. Now, something that you may not have caught here is that bar that I did have ending right here actually goes all the way through and into this one. So you can adjust this position in the middle of that whole thing. So you can adjust here, which is your steering wheel, how close that is to you. You can slide it on there, and then you can slide the pedals that would essentially be from here, or you can slide the whole thing. In all these positions you can adjust exactly your seating position. So with these tightened down in a random spot, I haven't actually checked these at all, but we're just going to get them secure. We now have this piece, and this is what's going to hold our steering wheel. That simply slides in, and again, we've got hand tight adjustment. So we can snug that up, and this is where our steering wheel position will end up being. So we've got there. Now the only things that we have left at this point is going to be our shifter. And now we're down to the shifter mount. And there's a spot on the inside of this track that's got this slightly larger than this size, and this is going to go in with the bolt facing up. You could possibly do it downward too, fill the whole thing up. It'll be a little bit awkward to get it in, but you make sure that's up, and you got one of these right in the side for a quick hand tight adjustment. And you can slide that all the way back if you want to. That will slide in right there. And then this piece slides in here, and again we've got another one of these for the top. And now we've got all of our mounts in place and ready to be adjusted at will. So we'll have our shifter right here, which I think is a very good, pretty natural position. Some of them are up here, which is kind of lame, but you can have close to a real position right here and right here. And at this point, you've got to figure out how to mount your own stuff. But I'm going to show you how to mount my Logitech stuff. If you found this video helpful so far, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Another thing is there's some stuff right here, and these are little rubber pads that can go on the bottom of this all over the place. If you've got hardwood floors or tile, I'd recommend using these. I am going to put them on as I do have hardwood. If you have carpet, it may not be such a big deal, but I am going to put these on the bottom. They've got adhesive little discs and the rubber spots, so I'll do that after the fact. But for our pedals here, we've got bolt holes. We've got 6 of them along here, and we've got a bunch of patterns here. And the cool thing here is nobody supplied hardware. No, they didn't supply hardware with this. They didn't supply hardware with this. So you will be on your own, and I'll have to figure out what hardware goes on here. I don't know right now, and apparently I'm not going to be able to use it immediately until I get that figured out. But our pedals go here, and we want to do that first because this is going to plug into the steering wheel. So that's going to be our last thing. We've also got the shifter. Now moving on to the shifter. This is going to be a little bit weird because this won't fit. The bottom of this is too wide to fit in there, so we have to take that off. And to do so, there's 4 of these little screws, and it requires a number 3 Phillips. It's got to be the pointy tip. Number 2 will not work out. So there's 2 here, and then down, way down there, there's 2 more. This comes right off, and then we can slide this on and tighten these screws. as you can see, it's still kind of loose. These will not go tight enough, so we'll have to put something in there to fill the gap on these sides. I will figure out exactly what I'm gonna do there, and that's up to you. But this does go right to the edge, so you've got to have something that's just slightly larger than this itself, whatever it is that you choose to put in there. So I will figure that out, but that's how that one goes in there. Like so, with some kind of spacer in there. Alternatively, there are bolt holes in the bottom here, and there are spots here that you may be able to bolt your shifter into. Now, as I have hastily and halfway installed our pedals, but not really with our missing hardware, and our shifter that I still have to bolt in with the hardware that is not supplied, or put something in there on the clamps, we have our steering wheel, which is going to be the last piece. And this, I believe, will actually clamp on here as it's supposed to. So under here we've got where this loops around, that's so it can't pull out. This will tie in. You want to do this on the inside. We have a spot here that is marked for the pedals, so we can plug this one in, and you can't really get it in the wrong spot as a result of the shifter is male on the steering wheel end and the pedals are female on this end. So we can do the same loop-de-loop over here on the inside, and our shifter we get plugged in after we drop it once or twice, and we can also loop there, go on the outside, and we go in these channels because this is going to sit flat right here. So this is going to go here. We can hand tighten these, and these will actually tighten. And you push those down, lock into place. Now this is obviously not a good driving position, and I will adjust that. And this does look like it's a little bit flimsy, and I saw in some of the reviews there's some complaints of that. You can see it kind of moving, so I may make some other adjustments to kind of tighten that up. But we have the USB end from the steering wheel that will go to the power box and everything else that's associated with this that is in the box. And whichever one you've got might be slightly different than this one. But as you can see with the Logitech 920 is you may have to do a little bit of modifications. Unbolt the one piece from the bottom here. Find out what hardware you actually need to bolt onto here. Find something you jam the clamps there. Hardware there. So I've still got a little bit more work ahead of me. So if you want just a take it out of the box and bolt it up, this particular seat and the Logitech 920, that's not going to do it. A different one might do it, but this is not one of them. I hope you've enjoyed this video and you found it helpful. And if you liked it, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And I do a lot of automotive content on this channel, but usually not this kind of stuff. But maybe I'll do a little more if the response on this is very good. So make sure you give us a thumbs up, and see you in another video.